Today, the House introduced a $3 trillion relief package that is expected to be voted on Friday. So knowing what you know about that package today, and trust me, we know these things can seem to change by the hour, so let's just go by what we know right this moment. By a show of hands, who would vote yes for this package on Friday right now? So we have 3 saying yes.
Okay, we're going to give each person 30 seconds to explain why. And let's start with you, Congresswoman Adams.
Well, as I just said, I think that we owe it to the citizens to continue to help them to see their way out and to at least let them know that they do have something else coming. What we provided is certainly not going to be enough to sustain them. So I would be supporting another stimulus package.
Representative Walker.
Yeah, I think it's a problem. It's kind of a wish list, kitchen sink, throw it in there. If you've got something in the past you'd like to try to hang over this time, let me just give you one example. The top 1% benefit tremendously in this with the repeal of the state and local taxes, what we call SALT. That to me is goes against my grain in the sense that everything that we should be focused on right now is to be able to offer the relief for those that are struggling or those impacted by COVID-19. Putting these other items in there, there's a great time for debate in the future. I just don't think it's right now.
And Congressman Murphy.
Yeah, you know, when we first entered into this crisis, I thought, wow, this is going to be a great time for our nation to come together, like 9/11 or any of the other crises, because we as a nation were battling this. I've been very disappointed because this bill, this 1800 bill, was just presented to us just a few hours ago. And looking at its snippets, unfortunately, you know, the first part was, the first CARES package was done with some bipartisan work. Unfortunately, this has literally been with no Republican input. And, you know, that's not the way that we care for our country. That's not the way that we care for our people. And there's so many things in there that are part of an agenda that have nothing to do with coronavirus relief. And so at this point in time, you know, I haven't had a chance really to read the 1,800 pages at this point. I'm going to be a no because we're just not concentrating on the things that we need to concentrate on. We're doing a wish list of other things, and I just don't feel that's appropriate at this time.
Congressman Butterfield.
Thank you very much. My colleagues just mentioned the fact that we introduced today the HEROES Act. I'm very proud of it. I plan to vote for it on Friday. But between now and Friday, we're going to be working very hard to make this bill a bipartisan bill. The last 4 investments that we've made over the last few weeks, I'm proud to say, have been bipartisan. Many of my colleagues on this town hall meeting this afternoon voted for these pieces of legislation. And so I'm not going to give up hope on our Republican colleagues because 50 governors across the country are asking us to quickly and boldly appropriate money so state budgets will not go underwater. Mayors and towns and counties across the country are asking for help. School systems whose students are out of school right now and teachers are not able to deliver quality education to the students, they're asking for support. And so we do, yes, we do have a $3 trillion massive HEROES Act piece of legislation. We're asking for support. We will have an opportunity to vote on it Friday. I will be voting for it. I hope my Republican friends will join us. If not, we'll send it over to the Senate and try to reach a bipartisan agreement in the Senate.
Okay, thank you. Congressman Hudson.
Well, thank you. I will be voting no on this bill. It's a $3 trillion, 1,800-page, job-killing boondoggle of a bill that was written in Nancy Pelosi's office with no input from Republicans, no input from the Senate, no input from the president. It gives it bails out pensions that are overfunded. It changes election laws. It wipes out provisions in the tax code that we did in the CARES Act that provide liquidity so the businesses can keep going and keep people on the payroll. It's a terrible bill, and shame on Nancy Pelosi. People in my district are hurting. They expect us to work together to solve problems, and yet here we're being asked to come to town to vote on a bill that she knows Mitch McConnell's not even going to consider. And frankly, I've been asking her for weeks to call us all back, that Congress ought to be working. We've got essential workers that we're expecting to show up to work every day, and yet Nancy Pelosi thinks Congress is not essential. I think she ought to call us back to work. Let's hold hearings and do the things that need to be done to address the needs of our constituents in a bipartisan way instead of having this show vote we're going to have Friday.
Congressman Bishop.
Well, I was listening to my friend Mr. Butterfield's comments there, and I agree with what Richard Hudson just said. A $3 trillion bill, biggest in the history of the United States Congress, it would be if passed. And you can't make that bill bipartisan by throwing it out there 72 hours in advance of a vote. It just doesn't work that way. Among other things, it mandates absentee ballots across the country, same-day registration. Ballot harvesting is to be mandated. I mean, it's just a wish list of Democratic priorities. It's not a real serious legislative effort. And I do think we need to be back in Washington. I'm in Washington now. Even though Speaker Pelosi has declined to call us back, I'm going to be here every week because we need to be here working in a bipartisan way for the help to help the American people who are suffering in this very difficult time. Not partisan games, but real serious legislative efforts.
Congressman Bishop, thank you for that. Let's hear from Congressman Price.
Well, I have here in my hand a section by section summary of this bill, and I'm just listening to my colleagues, and I don't recognize it from what they're saying. The vast majority of this bill is continuing things that they voted for, and that surely we have to agree are still needed until the country opens back up. The vast majority of this is for another set of direct payments, a continuation of the unemployment benefits, a continuation of the payroll protection plan. All of those things are simply continuations of things that they've all voted for, and that's the vast bulk of the bill. What else is in the bill? A good deal of money for additional medical research, some money here for testing and tracing. Surely everybody who wants to open the country back up has to agree that there needs to be testing and tracing. Yet we haven't had a national program. We haven't had an adequately funded effort. So there's money in here for testing and tracing. So if you want to open the country back up, we got to have the testing and tracing.
Okay, Congressman Price.
I just don't recognize the description that we've heard here of what's actually in this bill.
All right, now let's hear from Congressman Budd.
Thank you. You know, this is what Washington calls a messaging bill. It's not an attempt to legislate. It's, you know, I was with the president on Friday and I said, Mr. President, we have been here for weeks and we've been calling Nancy Pelosi to give us something legitimate to work on. This is 1,800 pages. It's 347,000 words. There's been no bipartisan negotiations. It's been written in secret. It's a partisan wish list from Nancy Pelosi. And this is the exact opposite of what was in the CARES Act. And by the way, there's still $120 billion left for the PPP. It was going out at $2 billion per hour. Now it's going out at less than $1 billion a day. Because largely these businesses and small businesses that are employing about half of our workforce in the country, it very successfully funded them and kept them intact so that we could reopen our economy. But this bill, it's a partisan wish list from Nancy Pelosi. I would not support it.